All right, so let's review this unit. We have a test this week. Not only we have a test this week, but this is the last unit before our final exam. Okay. So next week I'm gonna be talking a little bit more about finals, but this is the last unit before final exam for the first semester. All right, so let's see. I'm gonna work 41 through 52. So looking at number 41 and 42, write each as a decimal. Use repeating decimals when necessary. Okay, so from fraction, notice I'm going to start from a fraction. From fraction to decimal, there's two ways how I show you guys how to do this. I'm going to review both ways. Okay, so first one was by division. So I'm going to be dividing. I'm going to do the one inside the house, and then the number at the bottom goes outside of the house. The number outside of the house should not have a decimal point. It doesn't, but if it did, get rid of the decimal point. Move the point to the right as many spaces as necessary. The number outside should not have a decimal point. The number inside of the little house, it doesn't matter. It does need a decimal point. So I'm going to put it right there. So then I ask myself, how many times does 100 go into 1? Well, 0 times because 100 is bigger than 1. Okay, so I'm going to add another 0 here. How many times does 100 go into 10? I'm going to multiply 100 by something. Well, I cannot do that because 100 is bigger than 10. So, okay, let me put another 0 here. And let me put another 0 here. How many times does 100 go into 100? Well, 1 time, because 1 times 100 is 100. When I subtract this, I get nothing. I stop once I subtract those, once my remainder is 0. And my answer in this case would be 0.01. That's one way. Another way I showed you guys was using the denominator, the number at the bottom. Make sure the number at the bottom is a 1 with 0. So it's either 10, 100, 1,000. So the number at the bottom should give a 1 with zeros. If you want to divide, by all means, divide. But I'm going to use the denominator. I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 4. Okay? When I multiply top and bottom, because the bottom is going to become 100. I want the bottom to be a 1 with zeros. So either 10, 100, 1,000. So in this case, 100. Now on the top, 14 times 4 is 56. Okay, I'm ready to write this as a decimal. Let me write my answer as a 56 to begin with. Now, the number at the bottom tells me how many decimal places. Because the number at the bottom has 2 zeros, my answer will have 2 decimal places. Right? If the number at the bottom had 1 0, 1 decimal place. The amount of 0 is how many decimal places. Now, decimal places is how many numbers after the decimal point. So in this case, I have to have 2 decimal places. So my decimal goes right there. So it's 0.56. My answer, let me write this as 0.56. And again, the number at the bottom tells me how many decimal places. I guess this method was easier for number 41. We could have just written the 1 and then make sure we have 2 decimal places. And there you go. Then another thing that we saw is, what if I start as a fraction and I want to make this into a percent? Use repeating decimals when necessary. Okay, so I know how to make this into a decimal. I could divide 3 divided by 5, but in this case, I'm going to use the denominator instead. Let me multiply top and bottom by 2. So this gives me 6 over 10. I'm going to use the second method that I showed you, right, using the denominator. So this one I know as a decimal is 0.6, right? or 0.6 as a decimal. Because it's a 6 and it's one decimal place. So 0.6. But I need to write this as a percent. Now that I have it as a decimal, what I'm going to do, I'm going to move my decimal point 2 places to the right. If you need to add an extra 0 to be able to move this 2 places to the right, do so. Right. I move this 2 places to the right, so it's going to give me 60%. Don't forget the percent symbol. It says write it as a percent. It doesn't say just write a number, right? Write it as a percent. All right, so let's take a look at number 44. I'm going to use the method, using the denominator method on this one as well. We could divide 4 divided by 5, but I'm going to use the method. I'm going to multiply this by 2, so it gives me 8 over 10. So I had to write my 8, one decimal place. So as a decimal is 0.8. So matter of fact, 0.80. All right, I need to move this 2 places to the right. So 0.80 basically becomes 80%. Okay, so we know how to make it into a decimal. Once you have it as a decimal, move the decimal point 2 places to the right. Now looking at question number 45. Starting with a decimal, we want to write it as a fraction. Okay, so I'm going to write 28 to begin with over. Now at the bottom, I'm going to write over 100. I'm going to have 2 zeros. The bottom of my fraction is either 10, 100, 1000. I want to have 2 zeros because my number has 2 decimal places. So 28 over 100. Now simplify if possible. I'm going to divide each by 4. So that simplifies to 7 over 25. If you can simplify more, by all means do so. This one we cannot, so I'm just going to leave it at 7 over 25. Looking at number 46, I'm going to write this as 62 over 100. Okay, I got to simplify. I see they're both even numbers, and I know all even numbers are divisible by 2. So let's start with that. Let's see if I can make this smaller. I'm going to divide everything by 2. So that gives me 31 over 50. Nothing else I can do, right? Always ask yourself, can I simplify even more? Is there anything I can do? In this case, no. Now here, 47 and 48. Write each as a percent. Use repeating decimals when necessary. Okay, so it's given to us as a decimal, and we need to write it as a percent. All we have to do is move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So I'm going to call this 78.2%. Notice how all I did was I moved the decimal point 2 places to the right. Okay, now number 48, move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So I'm going to call this 0.76%. Now, some of you might be asking, why don't we just write 0.76%? Why don't we do that? Because I'm moving the decimal point 2 places to the right. Well, we can say yes, but the thing is that 000 is just as simple as just 1 0. So mathematically it is, both of them are correct. However, to simplify, we only write 1 0, not 0.76. Okay. Now let's take a look at number 49. Write each as a decimal. Round to the thousandths place. Okay. We're going to round thousandths place. Now, because it ends on the THS, that means it's a decimal point. Now, thousand, think about that. Doesn't that sound like the number 1,000? Right? Thousands. The TH at the end, once again, it means it's a decimal. Thousands sounds like thousand, which is a one with 3 zeros. So my answer here should have 3 decimal places. Okay? 3 decimal places. I'm going to write this as a decimal with 3 decimal places. So let me move my decimal point 2 places to the left. So I'm going to write this as 0.417. 3 decimal places is okay. Right? That's what I need. 3 decimal places. Okay, looking at question number 50. I'm going to move my decimal point 2 places to the left. Add an extra 0 before it if you need to. So it's going to give me 0.09. Now, 3 places to the 3 decimal places, mathematically speaking, 0.090. But the 0 at the very end, if you just write 0.09, you're okay. The 0 at the very, very end, it is unnecessary. If you write it, good for you. If you don't write it, good for you. Now let's take a look at number 51 and 52. Starting with with a percent, we need to write this as a fraction. Okay, so all I'm going to do, I'm going to write 0.4, because it's 0.4% over 100. Then I should have no decimal places anywhere, neither the top nor the bottom. And I see a decimal place on the top. I will need to move my decimal place to the right. So technically, I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 10. So that gives me 4 over 1,000. Okay, no decimals. 4 over 1,000. Now simplify if possible. Okay, they're even. So I'm going to say I could possibly divide by 2. So that gives me 2 over 500. And ask yourself, can you do better? Yes, I still have 2 even numbers. Let me divide each by 2. So my answer will be 1 over 250. Now on this one, I cannot simplify more, so that's it. 90%, so looking at question number 52, 90%, I'm going to write this as 9 or 90 over 100. 90%. I see they both finish with zeros, so I want to cancel out the zeros, and that's fine as long as I divide by 10. So that gives me 9 over 10. Well, cannot simplify anymore, so that is it. Zoom out so that way you guys can see what we did today.